Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Curry Parker here with your weekly energy forecast for the week starting on Monday, February the 3rd. For the next 2 years, the planets are schooling us in a very important idea. They are teaching us how do we take back control over that space between stimulus and response. Most of who you think you are, 95% of what's going on inside your brain is preconditioned programming. That conditioning comes from your ancestral programming. That's programming you're born with. It comes from your lived experiences. It comes from all the things people said to you growing up. It comes to you from how you process and experience energy. And mostly that conditioning is any place where you've internalized the message that it's not okay or safe for you to be who you are or how you are. And as a result of that internalizing that message, you've created patterns and habits and oftentimes protective identities to keep your authentic self safe. Those patterns and habits, that's about 95% of your hardwiring in your brain, cause you to react again and again and again. Think about that word, react, right? We're reacting out again and again and again. When we go through the process of deconditioning, which is really what's up for us right now in a big, big way on the planet and has been for the last year and will continue to be for the next 2 years, part of what we're doing in this journey of taking back control over the space between stimulus and response is we're reclaiming our authentic identity. We're rewiring our heart, we're rewiring our self-worth, we're rewiring our brain, our biology to really know that who we were born to be, that unique and vital and once in a lifetime cosmic event that is you, the only person in the world who can be you, that when you fulfill that story that you were born into, you have total control over your life. And not only do you have total control over your life, you become powerful and influential in every way necessary for us to transform this world. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on the planet this week and how what's happening this week is schooling you in taking back control over that space between stimulus and response. Speaking of taking back control of that space between stimulus and response, I'm teaching a free 5-day masterclass series starting on February the 10th through the 14th. In that masterclass series, I'm going to be showing you how you can take back control over that space between stimulus and response. We're going to be looking at quantum human design and how to use your quantum human design in the workplace to create your right work and work that is fulfilling and satisfying and profitable. We're going to be talking about how to use quantum human design to help you reclaim your health and break free from limiting patterns and old health patterns that might be keeping you in a low state of burnout. We're also going to be talking about your human design and your relationship and your hardwiring around money and how to make sure you take back control over your abundance blueprint so you can create what you really want to be creating for yourself in your life and tap into that support that's there and available to you. So I'll put the registration link below in the show notes. Make sure you join us. It's going to be an amazing event. It's going to be a brand new way, if you're new to human design, to learn more about human design. And if you know about human design, it's a really powerful refresher that's going to give you new perspectives and new viewpoints on who you are and how you operate in the world. All right, so big week. Lots to talk about this week. So let's start first and talk about, I'm going to put some of my papers away here. Let's start first and let's talk about what's going on starting Sunday. Sunday, we actually move into the very first quarter of the new quantum human design year. So it's funny, right, that our new year doesn't start on the calendar new year. We have this sort of dark and internal involution cycle that happens before the new year that started this year on January the 22nd. And even still, it's not quite a new beginning, right? We're almost there. And maybe if you felt like there wasn't quite, maybe there was momentum in January, but maybe it wasn't your momentum or momentum if you're choosing. It's because the beginning of this year on the calendar, when we look at it through the lens of human design, is really still a dream time. And we've been in a dream time, and we're still kind of in a dream time, but it's a different quality of dream time that starts on Sunday. So there are 4 creative quarters in the quantum human design year. The first creative quarter starts on Sunday when the sun moves into the gate 13, the earth highlights the gate 2, and we are focusing on exploring what do we want And what do we want to create for the rest of this year? Sort of this quarter where I like to call it, it's the quarter of the seed catalog. I'm a gardener. I live for the seed catalogs. Seed catalogs come in January. This year they came in late December. They come in January and February, and you start flipping through the seed catalogs and start dreaming about what are you going to plant and put in your garden this year. That's a really good metaphor for this quarter. This quarter invites us to really look at what do we want to do this year? What's our vision? What's our hope? What's our dream? And it's a really emotional quarter. It's a quarter where the sun travels through all of the gates of the emotional solar plexus, in addition to some gates in the G center and through the channel 2551, and inspires us to explore, most importantly, with this quarter beginning with the sun and the 13, explore what story are you telling about yourself and what you deserve and what you want and what you're willing to allow, and where perhaps you might be settling for less than what you deserve, and what do you need to do to rewrite that story so you can calibrate your energy, your vibrational frequency. This is emotional energy. Emotional energy, we have a tendency to think of it as being feelings, but really when we look at the emotional solar plexus, the emotional solar plexus isn't about feelings. Feelings are all over the chart. And those feelings are usually about our relationships or our resources. And the feelings that most of us have, variations on those feelings, are usually feelings that are in some way, shape, or form revolving around either a fear of loss or intimacy. So those are feelings, right? That's I feel sad, I feel scared, I feel lonely. All of those things, those feelings, they happen all over the chart. That's not actually what the emotional solar plexus energy is about. The emotional solar plexus energy is a vibrational frequency. It's a frequency that actually calibrates the heart either into a state of coherence or kicks it into a state of non-coherence, which is a low-grade fight or flight experience, reaction, right? Back to reactions. Now, we drop into either a state of coherence when we love ourselves, when we value ourselves, when we're telling good stories about who we are, and when we have faith that what we're wanting can actually show up in our lives. That creates a state of alignment and coherence, and that's a highly creative, highly vital state that allows you to see opportunity in the world and allows you to grow and expand. When we don't value ourselves, when we're telling a story that says, I don't deserve or I'm not worthy, and we don't love ourselves, and we tell stories, especially if we're trying to tell a story of more, right? If you're trying to affirm or manifest or visualize, but your sense of self-worth and your sense of lovability isn't really great, what happens is that dissonance between what we want and who we perceive ourselves as being worthy of, or what we perceive ourselves as being worthy of, that dissonance creates stress. And that stress actually drops us into a protective reaction. And that's actually part of what happens when we go into that stimulus response part, right? When we are not valuing ourselves, not trusting ourselves, not loving ourselves, when we encounter opportunity, it scares us, right? We tell ourselves, oh, no, I can't have that. And we stress ourselves. We drop into inadequacy or a fear of the future or the fear of the past or a fear of failing or a fear of our responsibility, right? It kicks us into a splenic response. This quarter is about getting your emotional energy calibrated and also making sure you're telling a good story about who you are, what you deserve, what you're willing to allow yourself to receive, and what you're worthy of. And so we begin this quarter calibrating ourselves for the rest of the year. And that calibration happens first and foremost by feeling our way into energetically faith, cultivating faith, and making sure that the story we're telling ourselves in the world about who we are and how we are is a story that's truly worthy of all these things we're dreaming of. So there's some work sometimes we have to do in this quarter, and it can feel emotional and it can feel deep and wave-like, right? We have to go into those depths and explore what's holding us back from telling a really wildly amazing story, right? And when we do that, then we open ourselves up, we set the energetic stage, if you will, for taking the next right step and the next right step in conjunction with consciously being able to choose what it is that we want and what next right step and what next right step do we need to take. Now, if it's feeling like it's even more intense right now than before, it is. It is. I said last week, I wish we had Valentine's Day last week, not next week, because Valentine's Day always happens every year right after the sun transits through the 49, which is the gate of the catalyst in quantum human design, but sometimes we call it the divorce gate. This is part of the channel 1949, the channel of intimacy and connection. If we look at where archetypes live in the chart and we recognize that certain parts of the chart are associated with key archetypes, the archetype of dating or courtship, or the energy for dating and courtship, lives in this channel 1949. Now, last week, the sun transited the 19. This week, the sun transits the 13 at 13, which is the gate of retelling, which is the beginning of that quarter that I just talked about. And then on Friday, it moves to the gate 49, the gate of the catalyst. So we've had, over the last 2 weeks, the energy of the 19, and now the energy coming up on Friday of the 49, giving us a theme around the channel of intimacy and connection. Now, in the high expression of that energy says, when you tell a good story about who you are and how you are, in other words, when you're telling a story that encompasses your love worthiness, particularly in the relationship arena, right? Then you open yourself up to be available to intimacy that allows you to feel loved and connected and valued. So it's about, telling a good story and then making sure that your relationship reflects your value and your values. That means that if anything is happening in your relationship that's violating your value and your values, this is a really important time, these 2 weeks, for you to reevaluate your relationship agreements and really explore, do you need to rewrite them? Or do you need to perhaps change your relationship status, which is really what that gate 49 is about. And so right before we go into Valentine's Day, we're all thinking about, that's it, I'm done. This is not what I want, right? It's the divorce energy that leads into Valentine's Day. Now, remember, this is the shadow. That does not mean that you can't have a great Valentine's Day. This is also a really good time to strengthen your intimacy and connection, to make sure that you are telling a story about yourself and your partner and your relationship that really sets the stage for genuine intimacy and connection. When we see these energies in a partnership connection, this is a couple that genuinely enjoys being together, loves to be together. And certainly this energy can give us the energy of being able to be emotionally attuned and dialed into each other. But it's also an energy that makes us really, really sensitive and really, really dialed into others. And so if you have been feeling in the last week, and this week it'll keep going, like, oh, it's too much, I can't, I'm an empath, I'm overwhelmed, I feel everything, I'm just completely done in by the energies around me. And I've had a lot of people tell me this in the last week. Take a deep breath, because it's easy for us to quit when this energy is in play. That's what part of what that 49 energy is. It can be an energy of quitting, but it's not a time for quitting. It's a time for learning. It's a time for taking back control over your own energy. This is emotional energy. And when we talk about emotional energy, there's a tendency for us, particularly if you're emotionally open, but not limited to that, because remember, this gate 19 is making us all sensitive last week, and same thing for this week. We're all sensitive and we're feeling it deeply, right? That when we feel things deeply, the tendency is for us to backpedal against it, right? It's painful. It's painful to be an empath, and we feel things so deeply and we want to just crawl under our weighted blankets and make the world go away. You are not responsible for fixing the energy around you. You can't control other people's energies. But let's talk physics for a moment. And this is heavy and this is hard and this takes practice. So I want you to be really compassionate with yourself as I talk about this. We have to go back to physics and high school physics class. When you learned about physics and you learned about vibrations or energy waves, you probably learned that high frequencies of energy, fast moving, high frequency energy waves, entrain lower waves, meaning they lift the frequencies around them up, right? A high frequency wave lifts the energy around you up. That's also, by the way, one of the principles of homeopathy. Now, low frequency energy cannot lower higher frequencies. It cannot. It's physically impossible. If you If you bring a high vibe into the room and then you play a bunch of low vibes, it is not going to lower that higher vibration. The opposite will happen. High vibes entrain lower energies. So what I'm gently and lovingly saying to you is that you cannot let your energy be co-opted by lower frequencies if you're operating at a high level unless you allow it. And I'm not saying that we're consciously allowing it. I'm saying what we have to do as part of our education from the planets the next 2 years is learn how to sustain our own frequency of energy, no matter what's going on around us. And that's a practice. And it's a practice that takes practice. It's a skill set. And we have to get practiced at doing this. And so what I want to say to you is that if it has felt heavy and hard and you feel like giving up and quitting, first of all, we can't quit right now. We're in the thick of it. We can do hard things. We can. What you have to do is take back control over your energy. And so it is okay to unplug, to go outside, to get yourself grounded, to do those things you need to do to stabilize your own energy. Because when you can hold on to your own frequency and consciously stay in that place, not only will you become more immune to the low frequency energy, you actually become more influential. You actually can become the person who shifts the energy in the room simply by walking in the room, or who shifts the energy in the grocery store simply by walking through the aisles and squeezing the Charmin. All right, so I want you to be aware that we're being schooled by the planets. We are all being tasked with learning how to be aware of the energy, how to watch it, how to see it. I'm not saying put your head in the sand and be like, la, 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 everything is well. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we have to learn to be aware of it, see it, and stabilize it by stabilizing it within ourselves first. That's the only thing we can control. That is the only thing no one can take away from you. Period, the end. No one can take your vibe away from you once you learn how to control it. And I like to think of it as sort of like Lizzo playing her flute, right? When you play a flute, especially if you know how to do circular breathing, right? You're holding that note. I can't do that, but you're holding that note. And as you hold that note, you're entraining everything else up to the high frequency of that note. Your frequency is like a note coming from a flute. So I want you to practice holding that note, learning how to stay in that frequency. Here's the other thing I just want to throw out here. Sometimes when we start talking about vibrations, especially when we start talking about love and light and all that stuff, your vibrational frequency creates an opening in your awareness. Part of what it's doing is it's calibrating you into a state of coherence, which, as I said, is a highly creative state. When we are in that high frequency state, not only are we taking back control between stimulus and response and consciously choosing with that 5% of our brain that we are in control of what we actually want to be creating, we become more aware of other opportunities. And certainly the work of the world requires work. Yes, your vibration is important, and we're still in a form where we have to move the mud on the planet. And so you will know what is the next right step, the next right action, the next aligned thing you need to do when you hold your energy high. If you're feeling powerless, if you're looking at the world like, what can I do? When you hold this energy, the next thing that is yours to do will be revealed to you. But if you don't, if you lose that connection, if you're not able to hold it sustainably, first, if you're not able to hold it sustainably, be nice to yourself, go for a walk, go do something kind, get some nap, go take a hot shower, go hang out with babies, go play with puppies, do what you need to do to get yourself back into that space and be sweet to yourself. This is a practice. Nobody's born knowing how to do this. We have to remember how to do this as we go through our lives. We have to relearn it, right? And then keep holding it as best as you can. And then trust that from that place, the next right step, the next aligned action will be revealed to you. You'll know what to do. You'll have the information you need to take whatever action is necessary for you to take to make the changes that your heart knows is the truth of who we are in this planet. You will know what's the next right step to create peace and abundance and equitability and justice and sustainability in the world. And that means when you make choices from that place, your choices will be intentional and deliberate and not reactive. If you make choices from that reactive place, then whatever we create is not sustainable. And it positions us into a binary place where we're choosing good, bad, left, right, up, down, poor, rich, into these very small containers of limited options instead of taking quantum leaps over our conditioning and stepping into the fulfillment of our potential in the most big, unlimited, cosmic way possible. So, if you felt really intense and emotional, or if your relationships have felt very challenging, if you have felt raw and dysregulated, it's because the planets are schooling us. They're schooling us into how to stay in these difficult spaces and hold our own energy, hold our own alignment. There's a lot more I could say about this week, but I'm going to leave it there because that's a big curriculum. That's a big lesson. Stay tuned. Next week, we'll talk about all the changes at hand and get us to the end of February, which, by the way, I think is by the end of February, I think it'll be a little less intense than January. And then March hopefully has a little bit of a reprieve from the intensity of this curriculum that we're in, courtesy of the planets. So take good care of yourselves. Have a great week. I'll see you next week.